I talk a lot about weapons and stratagems that I like to use, things that are underrated or just plain fun. But today, we're going to talk about some weapons that have been left behind, the ones that haven't seen the love they deserve. We're going to be talking about the weapons that need a buff. We're covering primaries, secondaries, throwables, and support weapons. We're starting off with primaries, and my first pick for this category is the STA-52 assault rifle. The biggest problem with this weapon and every other Killzone crossover weapon is the lack of customization. While everything else in this game got buffed from that update, these weapons were mostly left behind. This weapon has become completely outclassed by a maxed out Liberator carbine, which has the same damage per round, with better recoil, better fire rate, and you can even fit a drum mag on it for better capacity. And I understand that they don't want to interfere with the original design of the Killzone weapons by adding customization, and that's fine. But it should get a flat damage buff to have better damage per round than a Liberator carbine, because the Liberator carbine has it outclassed in every metric right now. And honestly, that would make the STA-52 have its own place in the sandbox. It would make it useful again. Next up, we have the R2124 Constitution. You knew this one was coming. The Constitution has been the subject of ridicule on this channel for months, and that has not changed one bit. This is another weapon that is lacking in weapon customization. You're only able to modify the weapon patterns for it, and that's fine in my opinion. It is an older weapon that is not as modular and modifiable as many of our other weapons, but the weapon just sucks. Still, it just sucks. I hate using it on anything higher than difficulty 4. To put this in perspective, this is a bolt action medium pen rifle that does 180 damage per round, while the Diligence Counter Sniper, a semi-automatic medium pen rifle, does 200 damage per round and has triple the capacity per magazine. They need to buff the damage on the Constitution to be 200 per round at least. A bolt action should not be doing less damage than the DMR, the semi-automatic DMR, with the same penetration. And the Constitution needs stripper clips. Stripper clips would make it much less of a hassle to use. It only makes sense, really. They did it for the Senator, so we know it's possible, and this weapon needs it a lot more. Next up, we have the R63 Diligence. This is one of the first marksman rifles that new divers will get their hands on, and it's not a terrible weapon. It does have the largest magazine capacity for a marksman rifle with the lowest recoil as well. I did debate putting it on this list at all, but it does less damage than everything else in the category, while still being stuck with light armor pen. Stat-wise, this is a pretty strange weapon. It acts more like a semi-automatic assault rifle, which isn't a bad way to use it, but it doesn't really fit the role of a marksman rifle that well. So I think it should receive a small damage buff to make it a great option for light armor pen sniping. Next up, we have the STA-11 SMG. Here we are with another Killzone weapon, and the exact same problems that I had with the STA-52 are present here with the STA-11, except they are even more apparent. If you have the Super Citizen Edition, the Knight is almost downright better from the moment you get it. It has the same damage with more capacity and more fire rate than the STA-11, and to get better recoil than the STA-11, all you need to do is to get it to level 3 for the vertical foregrip, and boom, the STA-11 is officially useless. It feels weird when you buy the Super Citizen Edition, which is effectively the deluxe edition of the game, and you receive something that is completely better than something else in the base game. Totally eclipses another weapon in the base game. So I think that the STA-11 needs a raw damage buff, just like the STA-52. Or if they want to go crazy with it, they could just give it medium armor pen and call it a day. If these Killzone weapons are going to be without customization, then they should at least be a solid package on their own. Next up, we have the SG-8P Punisher Plasma. This is one of the most unique weapons that we have in the game. It's a really cool and really fun weapon to use, but the damage output is somewhat lacking, especially for a weapon that isn't useful at long range and takes more skill to aim than your standard rifle. I can't help but feel like it needs some kind of damage buff. It needs to have more rounds in the mag, or maybe more damage per round, or maybe a larger AoE. It's still not bad. It has great stagger, and it does have AoE damage, and it does penetrate medium armor. I still think that it needs a buff. It should reward you when you use it correctly, and it's just too fun to leave behind. Next up, we have the Plaz 39 Accelerator Rifle. We now come to the last killzone weapon on the list, and you had to know that all of them were going to be on here. The Plaz 39 actually did get buffed when they added weapon customization. They made it have much less damage drop-off over distance, making it much better for its intended purpose, which was sniping. This was a much needed buff, but I feel like one of the biggest issues with this weapon has gone unnoticed. The ammo economy for it is awful. It fires a 3-round burst, and it can only fire 9 rounds per magazine. So you can pretty much only shoot it 3 times before reloading, which is already not good, and then you look at how many magazines you can take in total, and it's just not enough. And that's a shame because it's very satisfying to shoot. It's a fun weapon, but you can only shoot it so much before you need to resupply. Giving it a better ammo economy would make it more fun and more viable. Now we're going to move on to secondaries, and we're starting off with every melee weapon. Yeah, that's right. Every melee weapon needs a buff. They just aren't very good most of the time. I do think that the stun weapons have some merit. They can save your life if you're cornered by an overseer, for example, but the damage on every single melee weapon is lackluster. Each weapon does 110 damage, except for the stun baton, which does 50. 110 isn't enough for the risk you take when getting up close with the enemy, let alone 50. A single round from the reprimand does more damage with the same penetration. Or for a more direct comparison, secondary to secondary, the verdict does the same thing. More damage, same pen. I get that this makes sense for melee to do less damage than ranged attacks, but come on, it's just not worth it. The best part about melee in general is that you don't need to reload a sword, but that's just not good enough in my eyes. Anyone that is good at conserving and correctly using ammo won't have problems keeping themselves alive with ranged weapons alone. We did it for months and it wasn't a problem. I think melee weapons should do double the damage they do now, and I think that's a hard thing to argue with. Who out there doesn't want them to do more damage? And tell me why. Next up, we have the P11 Stim Pistol. This is one of my least favorite weapons in the game, partially because it is not a weapon at all. It is a healing tool, which isn't a bad idea by itself, but I find this thing frustrating to use, and you don't get enough out of it for what you put into it. There are 2 easy ways to buff this thing that would make everyone happy. First thing, allow it to penetrate friendly shields. It is really annoying to try and do this when you have a friend that is wearing the shield backpack. Maybe it could function like Dune, where it attaches to the outside of the shield and slowly penetrates before lodging into your friend and pumping them full of drugs. I don't know, I'm just coming up with ideas here. Another way to buff it would be making it lock on to teammates. We just got a pistol with the ability to lock onto enemies, so it's definitely possible, and it would make sense for us to improve our stim pistols like that, like in-universe. That would make sense. That would make it so much easier to use for people that are new to it. And you can add another firing mode that disables the lock-on for people that are already used to how it works now. I think that these 2 buffs would make it much more user-friendly. It would make more people actually want to try it out, and it would make me want to try it out again, which is crazy because I think this thing sucks. Next up, we have the SG-22 Bushwhacker. I know that I just recently mentioned this weapon in a video about underrated weapons, and I still do think that this weapon is underrated, but it can still use a buff. I even said so in that same video. This weapon deals 405 damage per shell, which is a lot. It is as much as the Punisher deals. In fact, they fire the exact same kind of shells. But the Bushwhacker, of course, has tons of spread. It is a sawed-off shotgun after all. The insane spread means that even at close range, it is unlikely for all of your pellets to hit the target. So I think that each shell should have more pellets. It would be really fun and it would make it a lot better. Imagine how powerful those 3 shots would feel if even more pellets came flying out of the weapon. It would be awesome to see. It's not a necessary buff. I still think that this is a good secondary, but I just feel like it would make more sense. It would make it more fun, and yeah. Now we are moving on to throwables, with my first pick being the G23 Stun. This grenade does everything that you expect it to do, which is, of course, stun enemies, and it does it pretty well. There are ways to make it better though. Maybe it could do some small amounts of damage, nothing crazy, but enough to put a little dent in small enemies. And you should definitely be able to hold more than 4 of these by default. You can hold 5 frag grenades and 6 pyrotech grenades, so why are we limited to 4 stun grenades? Balance-wise, it only makes sense that you should be carrying more stun grenades, at least 6. They can't even do any damage, so I don't see why that should be a limitation. Next up, we have the G3 Smoke. The smoke does exactly what you expect it to do. It puts up a blinding smoke screen that can throw enemies off and cause their aim to suffer. I also talked about this one recently in my underrated weapons video, and I still have the same idea for a buff to smoke grenades that I talked about in that video. It's the same thing as the stun buff I just mentioned. Let us hold more of them. You should be allowed to carry more of any grenade that is non-lethal, and these grenades are completely non-lethal, and they only allow you to hold 4 stuns and 4 smokes. It's honestly not enough for what you get out of them. Again, you should be holding at least 6 of these. It only makes sense with the current balancing of throwables. Next up, we have the K2 throwing knife. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Throwing knives are the worst, absolutely the worst throwable in the game. They deal horrible damage for the effort you put in to actually hit one on target. Your character can barely throw them straight. It's like a limp-wristed throw. It's downright frustrating to use them. The easiest ways to buff these would be to make them fly straight and fly further and increase the damage. Even then, they would still be outclassed, but then they might actually be fun, kind of. Right now, they're not fun, they're not viable. Throwing knives have been in very dire need of some kind of buff that isn't just giving you 20 of them. And now for the final category, support weapons. And we're starting off this one with the TX41 Sterilizer. I think this is a really cool idea for a support weapon. I used to think it was the worst support weapon in the game, but we've had some developments since then, and now I just think it's not great. The main problem with this weapon is the insanely low damage. The gas spray only does 30 damage per second, and the gas itself adds 25 damage per second. That is not enough for a support weapon in my opinion, even one that is focused on crowd control. It should do more damage, period. 55 is just not enough for something as important as a support weapon. There are many other weapons that will just straight up kill enemies instead. The flamethrower is the best comparison, of course. It deals great damage, and it can still give you good area denial, which I would argue is a good form of crowd control. The sterilizer just needs more damage. Not a ton of damage, because it is created with crowd control in mind, but a support weapon should never be dealing that little amount of damage, in my opinion. And finally, the end-all be-all of shitty weapons, the CQC-1, One True Flag. We all knew this was going to be on the list. I have a real problem with how our most democratic items are always the worst. First the Constitution, and now this. This is the worst support weapon, period. Maybe the worst weapon in the game. It is a glorified secondary. It is almost the exact same weapon as the stun lance, but it's somehow even worse. It takes up your support weapon slot. Already you're left questioning why the hell you would take it. Recoilless rifle? No. Machine gun? No. Break action shotgun? That would be a hell of a lot better than this if I could take it with me. It gets worse. This goddamn flag is constantly waving in your face if it's not in your hands, obstructing your view and making it impossible to aim at times. But wait, it can get even worse. I've had this stupid fucking thing block my shots. Did I just shoot my own flag? What was that? It actually stops me from spreading democracy. This makes it, without a doubt, the worst support weapon in the game. Now, how do we buff something like that? Well, the most common suggestion is that the flag should give your team a buff if you're close to the person wielding it. Imagine if it gave you and your team some damage resistance or limb health or like a slow heal over time effect. There are a ton of ways that you could make this worth it, but right now we're stuck with a stun lance in the support weapon slot, and that is just not right. The flag is a symbol of democracy. It should inspire the troops on the field and not be a sign that, okay, this mission's gonna be really fucking hard now. Everything about it needs to be buffed, period. It is our flag. It's what we fight for. Make it worth fighting for. And those are all of the weapons that I think really need a buff. But I'm sure there are more, so tell me what weapons you think need a buff in the comments. Please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed watching, and subscribe for more Helldivers 2 videos. Life has kept me busy the past few weeks, but I'm looking at increasing my video output to around 2 per week, so stay tuned. That is all I have for today, so this is the SES Prophet of Dawn signing off.